It's late March, and the urban farmers are back again at my house to continue converting my front lawn into a food garden. That's me, Joann, on the left. Most of these people have been gardening for decades. I'm new to gardening myself. The one thing I'm learning is the more experts you know, the more opinions you'll get. This project has a lot of experts, so it's become a kind of experiment. Last November, we sheet mulched the front half of the lawn. We covered that grass with layers of cardboard, compost, and leaves. Now, 4 months later, the cardboard is mostly decomposed, and below it, worms are feeding on the dying, but not completely dead, grass. For the rear half of the lawn, we used a sod cutter, then we covered the bare dirt with cardboard, compost, and leaves. Now, below the cardboard, the earth is crumbly, and there's less organic matter. That black soil is the compost we added earlier. But there's no live grass. The sod that we removed is still under a tarp in the back, decomposing. The worms are busy, but it's not ready for use as compost yet. So now the work begins. We set out red flags to mark where the paths will go. Some of the paths are shaped like keyholes, so the gardener, me, can get in and reach everything easily. So we start digging out where the paths are going to be, piling the leaves and compost onto the beds. We're also taking a bit of the good topsoil that we amended before. This way, we not only clear the paths, but we also build the beds. We were well into that plan when Keith suggested that we dig deeper. A lot deeper. Keith explained why. First, we don't want to waste the topsoil we amended. Second, we're creating the effect of raised beds. Raised beds allow the soil to drain so that it warms up and doesn't get waterlogged. Some plants need more than a few inches of good soil to root in. And finally, the paths should be deep enough so that you can add enough chips to keep the weeds from growing. So they keep digging down to the subsoil, where the organic matter stops and it's just mineral soil.
What's that, about 6-7 inches below the original grade?
Finally, we covered the paths with burlap sacks. A few days later, Keith came back and added cedar chips on top of the burlap. Now, there are a couple of problems with piling all that dirt on top of the leaves, but that comes later. While all that digging was going on, BJ and I are planting blueberry bushes. The bushes will separate the lawn from the sidewalk. The experts advised me to set the plants higher to adjust for the soil building up around it over time. Here's Lee planting raspberries along the southern side of the yard. Sometimes it seems like whatever you do, there's always a better way to do it. Here we are, tying bamboo together to make a trellis. Well, then John politely showed us how unstable it was. His solution: start with 2 poles, then keep lashing in 1 more pole at a time. Finish it off, and voila. Under the teepee, Susan and Lee are planting snap peas.
City People's Park. Yeah, the one over by here.
Do we want to try putting a potato in the middle of the teepee or not?
Why not? I mean, I don't care.
These are
those are Yukon.
Yukon gold.
Yeah.
So I let them get up high, how high before I start stacking dirt on them again.
The more dirt, the more
potatoes I'll get.
If you don't want them to come back, you want to make sure you get all of them. You want to know where you planted them.
Usually you plant them in a trench or something.
This is an experimental garden.
Oh, yeah.
I hear if I don't kill at least 1 plant a year, I'm not really a gardener. Because the ground needs a little more time to decompose some of the grass. We're going to put some strawberries in these planters to get them started this year.
Like this. Cover it up.
Then we built a cloche to plant the spinach under. But the plastic sheet was too small. But we're resilient people, so we made a wall out of wine bottles.
Are you thinking that if you plant a bottle, you're going to get grapes?
So what have we learned about sod cutting versus sheet mulching? Well, for Keith, sod cutting wins hands down.
You can really see the difference, though, between where we cut the sod and where the sod wasn't cut in terms of how much grass is still alive. This is why I believe in sod cutters.
For others, the cardboard promotes relationships between the dying grass, the beneficial microorganisms, worms, and fungi. Cutting the sod removes the organic matter from the mix. Where the grass does grow, it's easy to pull out. This experiment is not over yet. And what about piling all that extra dirt onto the raised beds? How will the plants do in that? We'll just have to see.